Moderator, does it for a living, this whole predictive analysis. So let's welcome to the stage Tom Hackenberg, Principal Analyst at IHS Markit.
Hello, everybody. I appreciate it. I want to make sure that you understand that this is going to be a very participatory panel, hopefully. You've had opportunities so far to see a lot of great stuff. We want to bring up a couple of very smart people that are going to be able to answer your questions. I'll throw out questions as well, but I want to direct your attention that there is a microphone in the center here, and you're all invited, if you have questions to bring to this session, to go ahead and take the opportunity to ask. So the first thing I would like to do is introduce our panelists. So first of all, as I am from IHS Markit, I'll be your moderator today. My background is in embedded processing for the last 10 years, and at IHS Markit, we track everything from the source up to the supply chain, through the supply chain, and to the end products and trends. We study the IoT market pretty well, and I think that we've got a couple, from my own experience, I think we've got some really great panelists here to present that look from the top to you. That being said, let me introduce our first panelist. This is, I'd like to bring up Daniel Cooley. Daniel is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of IoT Products at Silicon Laboratories. Daniel drives the company's global IT strategy in business results. He's responsible for the independent development and market success of the company's microcontrollers, multi-protocol wireless, system-on-chip solutions, wireless modules, wireless MCUs and transceivers, optical and environmental sensors, IoT development tools and wireless protocols, stacks including Thread, Zigbee, Bluetooth, proprietary sub-gigahertz software. He has a master's in electrical engineering from Stanford University and a bachelor's in electrical engineering from the University of Texas here in Austin. He holds 4 patents in radio and low power technology. Let's hear it for Daniel Cooley. Our next panelist is Thierry Klein. Thierry is the head of innovation management for verticals at Nokia. Thierry is responsible for innovation and new strategic directions for Nokia in vertical markets and specific focus on the transportation, automotive, and connected industry segments. His broad scope includes positioning Nokia into new ecosystems and business partnerships, including new internal and external innovations into the Nokia portfolio. He also serves as the founding vice chair of the board of the 5G Automotive Association, bringing together the automotive and telecommunications industries. Let's hear it for Thierry. And finally, I'd like to introduce Uzair Siddiqui. Uzair is a senior product and marketing manager at Verizon, focused on Internet of Things, products and services, covering all aspects of IoT strategy, design, implementation, and operations. Mr. Siddiqui has over 15 years of experience in the telecommunications industry, focused on product management and marketing of innovative technology solutions for enterprise customers. Mr. Siddiqui has spoken at numerous webinars and has organized several industry events. Let's hear it for Uzair. So before we start with some questions for our panelists, let's set some groundwork on what we think the Internet of Things is. So first of all, at IHS Markit, we define the Internet of Things as a conceptual framework. It's not a market, it's not a device. It's a conceptual framework driven by the idea of embedding connectivity and intelligence into a wide range of devices. An IoT-enabled device is one that has some form of embedded connectivity that enables the device to directly connect to the internet or allows the device to connect through some tethering to an IP addressable device. That connectivity can be wired or wireless. We've already seen some 5G talks on Internet of Things, but it does include the ability to just connect over Ethernet or even USB. So let's talk a little bit about the scope of IoT opportunity. We've had an internet for a generation now. We've had lots of devices that are currently connected to the internet. So what is this IoT opportunity that everybody talks about? So to be truly considered an IoT opportunity, we think of devices, the device's connectivity must enable a higher level of local or systemic intelligence by supplying or receiving actionable data or control through that device's network connectivity. IoT-enabled devices often utilize a range of sensors or create new connected user experiences. Though neither is required for our definition, it is a common aspect of IoT applications. The ability to remotely manage or collect vast amounts of data in near real time from a broad range of intelligent connected devices forms the foundation of opportunity of IoT. This data can be accessed directly via the cloud. Unique value propositions often result from these complex analytics and big data techniques enabled by the growth of IoT connected devices. So let's also further focus on enterprise IoT opportunity as we are here today for that topic. Within the IoT framework, enterprise businesses are in a unique position to utilize the Internet of Things, since their very structure often places them in a position to access vast amounts of data and systems under their control. Through the IoT, they can strategically employ central or distributed intelligence provided by these IoT-connected devices to optimize existing services and maintenance or enabling services and features never before available. So whether used to optimize organizational efficiency, provide new business-to-business or business-to-consumer services, enable smarter, healthier, and safer lifestyles, or create applications yet unimagined, the IoT enables enterprise one of the greatest opportunities to influence the shape of things to come. With that, I would like to give you some IHS Markit view of the actual data on enterprise applications. So on the graph on the right, we actually are showing you here where we see IoT applications in industrial applications, industrial enterprise in 2015. These are the amount of devices that are utilizing IoT technologies to provide enterprise solutions. Compare that to 2025 and you'll see that really there's no other market out there that is poised for such growth in taking advantage of IoT opportunities. So the opportunities include increased productivity and cost optimization. There's autonomous production, supply chain coordination, just-in-time production, dynamic asset management, inventory and fulfillment management, real-time price adjustments, location-based inventory management, improved safety. We've heard a lot about smart cities and smart communities. So access control and surveillance, diagnostics and predictive maintenance, remote monitoring. These are all opportunities provided in the enterprise space. There are, however, risks that come with these opportunities. So as investors and players in this IoT market, you have to understand that there are longer development and higher CapEx expenses for the enterprise industries, which is why we see so fast an uptake in the consumer side it takes a lot longer to introduce new ideas and take advantage in the industrial enterprise applications. There are long replacement cycles that drive the need for retrofitting. Security concerns. Intrusion, data breaches, cyber attacks, these have all hit headlines, but these are very real threats, and they only, with connected devices being prolific, the threat only grows. The proprietary sharing of data, and who owns that data, and what value can we get from that data. There is a hesitance as people decide what value that they are willing to share with other players in the community. There's system interoperability and failures and limitations. We've seen in many early adoptions of IoT technologies the fact that there are so many different operational strategies that there's often a hesitancy to invest in a single strategy until it's known that that strategy has legs. There are behavioral factors, constant monitoring efficiency versus job security. There are a lot of people who are worried that autonomous and connected means lack of the human element. But we know from experience, like automotive industries, the computer itself, that these advancements offer not only technological opportunity, they offer the advancement for human opportunities as well. So with that introduction of the IoT Enterprise IoT applications, I would like to ask our panelists a question to start with, but I would also invite you to queue up at the microphone for those of you who would like to ask your own questions of these very intelligent gentlemen. So, to start things off, I would like to, let's start with each of you briefly providing your own organization's connection to the IoT ecosystem. Where do you see you and others in your communities playing in this enterprise ecosystem and shaping the future of the enterprise IoT? Let's start with Dan.
Good morning, everyone. I guess it's afternoon now. Welcome to Austin. So Silicon Labs is a chip supplier. We make chips and we write software for those chips, and then we sell those chips into our customers who build IoT applications. So we see across all geographies, we see across all segments, whether it's industrial, communication, consumer, and so on. And we really specialize in the command and control networking that's really going through an explosive boom right now. So it's not data being passed around, content like your Netflix at home. It's more about command and control, sensing and actuating. And so that's really, I think, an enabling factor for the IoT that was missing for a long time. And we're really excited about the growth.
Terry?
Thanks, Tom. So for us, we're really at the beginning of the fourth industrial revolution. And this revolution will connect everything, everybody, automate things, make life easier, industrial process more productive. And if you try and connect all the things, we believe that we need to create what we call a nervous system for all the things and people that we connect. And we believe Nokia can be at the heart of building that nervous system from a connectivity perspective, but also from a cloud infrastructure, device management, platform perspective to really, if you look at the analogy with the brain, it's really building that equivalent brain for the industrial enterprise and sectors.
Thank you, Terry. Uzair?
Yeah, so from our perspective, we see that enterprises deploy IoT solution mainly for three reasons. Either to make money, or to save money, or as I call it, to get out of jail, meaning they have to be compliant with government regulations or industry standards. And our role at Verizon is really to make it easy and simple for our customers to achieve those goals. So taking out the friction from deploying your IoT solutions. So whether it be having a broad ecosystem partners like Nokia and others, to having the top-notch connectivity, Cat-M1, the LTE technology, as well as the platforms to ingest sensor data and making it easy and simple for you to develop solutions. And lastly, we have also deployed very, very specific vertical solutions, whether it be smart cities, namely smart lighting, intelligent traffic solutions, to smart grid solutions, to agriculture and smart agriculture solutions, and others to, again, make it easy and simple for enterprises to deploy and realize the benefits of IoT.
Thank you. So let's start getting a little bit more difficult as we go along the way. So let's talk about, the consumer market seems to garner a lot of media attention. So let's talk about, give us your perspective of how enterprise markets will uniquely shape things to come, and provide some examples of applications at the center of the enterprise IoT, so that we can look forward to, or alternatively, tell us some of the things we may be wary of.
Do you want me to go ahead, Daniel?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Uzair, why don't we start?
Okay. So let's face it, guys. The consumer IoT solutions have been extremely popular. They're the cool and sexy things that you normally touch and feel every day in your life. So they tend to get a lot of hype. But enterprise is where the biggest impact to our day-to-day life is going to be. Whether it be Vision Zero, where cities are deploying to make sure that there's zero pedestrian death, right? Or to water conservation through smart agriculture solutions. So you're making sure you're irrigating only as much water that you need for the specific type of crop that you're deploying. To smart grid type of solutions, so you're making sure that electricity and renewable energy is being utilized as much as should be. So even if you make 1% improvement or 2% improvement, we're talking about billions of dollars in savings of these natural resources. So that's where we're going to see the biggest bang for our bucks in the enterprise IoT side.
Yeah, I think adding to that, what we always talk about in Silicon Labs, because our chips can be adopted pretty broadly across applications, but we definitely see the growth in the industrial and enterprise space being substantially larger than consumer in the out years. So 2025 will eclipse the consumer side, number one. And number two, it's more sustainable revenue. So it's higher quality revenue with better customers and longer engagements and more profit to be made. So, the future, I think, of the IoT, if you're going to be supplying components into that ecosystem, is going to be more of what does the enterprise need, what does the industrial markets need, and we're already seeing that today. I mean, we don't have to wait until 2025. And I don't need to wait for cities to, get their acts together, pass their bond packages, and roll these things out. There are customers today in the enterprise space who are actually deploying this IoT technology, whether it's Bluetooth connectivity, Wi-Fi connectivity, or another kind, and they're unlocking real value. And not only that, they start off with an idea for a business model, on why they would want to do all the work to integrate this technology, and they quickly span it into multiple different businesses they didn't even think of as they got into it. And some of this stuff is in the press. You guys can go read about what they're saying out there. So it's really exciting. We're seeing the growth today, but it's going to take 10 years for this to roll out.
So I'm going to talk about one opportunity and one challenge that maybe you asked, Tom. I think in general, if you look at, there's some studies that say the overall economic impact from the industrial IoT compared to the consumer IoT is twice as large. So, and it's counted in trillions, and this may be the first time we count something in trillions as opposed to billions. So overall, it may not be the one thing that you feel in your personal life, but the overall impact, to Uzair's point, is much, much larger. I think one of the challenges that we see is a lot of the applications and use cases go into mission critical. If you talk about smart grids, you talk about autonomous vehicles, that's very different from your home temperature application or your Fitbit type application. So I think that's one of the challenges that we really need to understand, certainly coming from the telecommunications industry, interfacing to these industrial sectors, understanding the mission criticality of a lot of the opportunities that underlie IoT. But then one of the interesting, really exciting parts is when you go across sectors. So you asked for an example. So if I can look at a city, I can look at the airport, I tie that into a train schedule, into private shared transportation, and now I can maybe optimize that. The system, somebody, the city, knows my plane is delayed. They can then reschedule when my shared taxi is picking me up, and they can really, you can really find ways to optimize across different sectors. And I think we look still in somewhat a siloed way, but I think it becomes really, really exciting when you look across different sectors.
Any other comments on things that we might be wary of that our audience can do some risk analysis of their own?
Who owns the data is something I always ask. I mean, I'm in the business of generating data, and I throw it off into the internet, and it goes somewhere, and presumably it's very valuable, or people wouldn't be doing this. And so one thing that I always think of is who owns that data? What responsibilities do they have? I used to think smart health was going to be the next big thing, and it will be there, but I was talking to a doctor friend, and I was like, this is going to be great. You'll know everything about me, and you'll know when I'm getting sick before I get sick. And he said, no, I won't. I don't want that data. That's a liability for me. Someone can look back, 2 years ago and say, oh, you had this precursors for cancer, and you guys didn't detect it. Well, maybe 2 years ago that didn't even exist, that analysis, but for him, it's a liability. He doesn't even want the data. So, I'm in the business of creating the data, but I don't necessarily know who owns it and all the regulations and responsibilities that come off with that.
To add to that, I think initial focus of IoT was collecting data and maybe doing some rudimentary analysis on, if temperature exceeds this much or the weather is like this, do X or Y. We're now in pretty soon we're going to be in an era where data is coming in as everything's connected, Cat M1, 5G, everything is out there. You're going to get tons of data, but how do we make it actionable? Not only who owns it, but can we do real-time analytics to find the right pattern? So those AI, those analytics is going to be a huge thing that's going to happen with IoT.
Great. And I would add, where does the data go? Not just who owns it. But this morning there was the gentleman from MIT had the example of tracking trash, and we discard it, and then the trash and everything, he showed where it goes in the world. So the same question is maybe the value in the future is the data, but where does it go after you consumed it?
After it loses its usefulness to you, there may be somebody else who finds it useful.
Exactly.
So you brought up security, so let's talk a little bit about that, because it's virtually impossible to consider the growth of connectivity without considering the growth of cybercrime and cybersecurity breaches. Are enterprise IoT solutions increasing the risks to those players that implement them, to themselves, and to their clients and constituents? So as we look at things to come, how do enterprise market community players stay ahead of those that would exploit connected devices?
Can I take that first? I actually have customers today that are holding back because of security. And there's a cost element to security, there's a future-proof element, and there's an energy element, in a battery-powered device. How much does that security, tax the rest of the system? But we have customers today, it's the first time I've seen it in my career, certainly, where people are holding back until the security stuff comes down to the right cost point. And they're working with us on, okay, what do we put in the chip for the next generation? We're working broadly across the ecosystem to see, with governments to see what standards are gonna come to the front. But at this point, I think we got to crack that nut. And in enterprise space, you can move a little faster because these are wholly owned networks. But I think for interoperability concerns, there has to be agreements broadly across that ecosystem. And we're working on the next gen right now, but it's not solved.
So let me take maybe a slightly different tack on it. There's definitely the points, what I would call the point solution. And we definitely need to figure that out. But I think we also have opportunities from deploying a lot of devices, and they can learn from each other. So you learn a pattern, you can learn what's typical for these devices, for these machines. And you can then also infer from sort of a crowdsourcing of the devices in your factory, for example, if all of a sudden one device starts behaving differently, maybe that's a sign of an alarm. So there's maybe a notion that we can take advantage of the scale of the number of devices you mentioned, Tom. How do we harness that for improving the security of the system as a whole?
So it sounds like you feel like maybe neural networking has a place in enhancing the security in as we do pattern matching and things like that.
Exactly.
So survey after survey, you will see that security is one of the top concerns for enterprises when deploying IoT solution. Now, having said that, there are some unique challenges when it comes to security for IoT, but there are certain principles that stay the same when deploying IoT solution. So for example, we talked about making sure that the security that you're deploying matches the asset or risk that you're trying to avert. So in other words, if you're securing a nuclear facility, that is a different set of security measures you need to take than if you were to just monitoring your fleet that's delivering packages, right? So, so that's one thing, we need to match that. The other thing is, let's take advantage of the tools and resources that are currently out there. Some of these things are basic things, you know, just kind of making sure you change the password, making sure that you have the hardened devices, making sure you're using network that is secure, and take advantage of the cellular connectivity and inherent security that comes with it, having a platform that ingests data and that is secure. So those are some of the basic things you do. And then the last thing is kind of making sure you stay on top of the security vulnerabilities that are coming out. This is an evolving field. We're still seeing, you know, with the credit card and retailers, and even with PCI compliance and all the security, we're still seeing hacks going on even on that side of the business. So I think it's an evolving cat and mouse type of game where you have to constantly evolve. It's not one time you build it and forget it. You have to continuously making sure you're monitoring your devices, making sure you're putting out the patches that you need, and then ultimately going back to what Daniel was saying, the business case has to make sense. It's not really so much a technology issue, it's predominantly a business case. So if in your case you're trying to secure something and it's really, really precious, then you have to make sure that the amount of security that you put in makes sense for the ROI.
So like here's a specific example. Europe kind of leads the way in security regulation. They always have in personal data, but also IoT. And I don't remember what the name of the regulation body is, but it's the German version of NIST. Okay, and they put out a specification for smart meter data collectors in terms of the level of security that it needed. And it has the whole metering industry afraid right now because the cost to implement that security is so high, not just in engineering specialty, but in physical BOM of this device, that nobody's answering RFPs right now. And they're kind of wait to see if this figures out. They feel like the government overshot when they were specifying this, and they're going to wait for them to kind of back off and relax so they can start building these data aggregators again. I mean, you're going to see this happen time and time again for the next few years as we grapple with, you know, private industry, the public, and governments as they try to kind of do the dance.
And just to add to that, there are a lot of other technologies that are coming out, specifically targeting the IoT security. So for example, at Verizon, we recently launched IoT Security Credentialing, which is an over-the-top security solution. So you may have your private network, but you want to make sure you want to have an end-to-end security. This is a certificate-based security to ensure that the end device is the one that should be communicating, and we are making sure that the certificate ensures end-to-end connectivity, secure connectivity between the device and the platform. So that you can see a lot of new entrants, a lot of new technologies that's coming out that's addressing some of these security challenges.
Thank you. Do we have a question yet? We're down to a very short period of time. I want to make sure that if anybody has a question, they get an opportunity
Come on
to ask
down. To the microphone right there.
Come to the microphone.
We're here for you guys today.
All right.
A quick question. On a previous panel, it was mentioned that in the future, the private LTE networks or even 5G networks for enterprise IoT will have an important place. So from your perspective, Verizon, Nokia, and Since you guys are more into the service provider space, why do you think private networks will have an important role, especially as there is more focus on security and the public network? Why do you think enterprise would move into private network?
Okay, got it. Yeah, I can go first, and then you can add. When we talk about private network in the context of Verizon, what we're really making sure that the data that's coming in from the devices, from the sensor data, is not touching the traditional internet and is open for everyone to see. It's a private network, making sure that the data only goes directly to your private cloud. So that is another set of things you have in your arsenal to making sure you segment your data, making sure your data is secure. Again, if this is something that your specific scenario requires a private data, that is something that a private network is something that we make available.
So I think we believe quite a bit in private networks for enterprise. I think I heard Multifier mentioned a few times this morning, CBRS already. So we're members of both alliances. We believe in that quite a bit. Number of reasons. Performance. You can really have your network close by, as opposed to you don't necessarily know where the network is deployed relative to where you are. So you can have really higher performance. Security, privacy of your data stays within your environment, as well as just additional access to spectrum that you can harness.
You guys did a great job.
All right, thank you very much. We've used our time, but I do want to invite you to follow up with any of our panelists or myself afterwards if you have additional questions that you would prefer to ask in private, or establish some relationships with these guys. All right? Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot to Tom and to all of our panelists. You know, we've talked a lot about how IoT enables digital transformation today, and in our